It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 31, looking at the players of the 2025 African Cup. This episode is looking at the players of Tanzania. Part 1, Candidates. Here we go! Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada. I'm Kevin and this is Series 31 on the players of the 2025 African Cup. This episode covers Tanzania's players. Just a note on where we're at in our media casts. We're publishing previews of the groups and teams of the 2025 African Cup at the same time as this series on the players. Last summer, we previewed the groups, teams, and players for the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup. We also did a media cast introducing ourselves. And after this African Cup, we will tackle the massive 48-team World Cup in the summer of 2026. So keep an eye out. That's such a horrible expression. Anyway, I'll go with it. Keep an eye out because we plan to start publishing those in the springtime of 2026. We're doing this media cast in two parts. Part 1 here is a look at the candidates for the squad and their likelihood of making it. So we examine the participation of players in games over the recent period, as well as a couple of other factors that we take into account. And we categorize the players into definite, likely, possible but unlikely, and seemingly off the squad. And we'll go into more details on the players we think likely to reach the final squad, and less, perhaps just even the names of players unlikely to get there. Part 2 will come out when the squad lists are released and the final squad selected, probably in early to mid-December. At that time, we're going to go back over the list that we create here today and see who made it and who didn't. And we'll also cover things like injuries and surprise selections. So this episode has 3 sections. So this episode will have 3 sections. In section 1, we're going to look at some general information on the team. Yikes, my graphics betrayed me there. In section 2, that's the main part where we look at the candidates for the squad in each position and give their likelihood of selection. And then section 3 is basically just summarizing what we've done in part 2. We're also releasing that as a short version of the media cast. Okay, let us move on then to section 1. And here we're kind of looking at some general information on the team. And we have been actually starting this off with big names who are off the squad. We've decided to reorganize that a little bit and, give the details in section 2 and then just summarize it in section 3. So big names off the squad coming up a bit later. Let's look at the kind of clubs that the players on Tanzania play for. Most of the Tanzania squad plays in Tanzania. So probably the biggest clubs there are Azam FC, Simba, and Young Africans. And those are pretty good clubs, actually. Players from various countries in Africa come to play for them. So they're kind of international within Africa, if you will. So 75% there. About 10%, and these figures are very rough, about 10% play for clubs in Africa and Asia. So we have players with a smaller club in Egypt, actually probably the biggest club in Iraq there, Istiklal, and then a small club in Azerbaijan. there, so about 10% there. Also, we have about 10% playing for small clubs in Europe. I'll just give you an example of some of the names there. You may not even have heard of them. The first one, a player playing in Floriana, is a club in Malta. And when it comes to England, it's much lower down the divisions than some of the African teams we see. We have Salford City and Rochdale represented as clubs from England. Probably the biggest clubs they play for, the topmost clubs in Europe, about 5% of the players, just a couple of them. The biggest clubs would be Aalborg in Denmark and Göztepe in Turkey. So yes, not as well affiliated as some of the bigger teams in Africa there. Okay, let's take a look at their recent games. So these are the games in the build-up to the Cup. After the African Cup in 2024, that 2023 African Cup was in January of 2024. We will start our narrative by looking at that Cup, but in terms of the participation count, we're beginning after that. So that begins, so I'll just put in grey their 3 games in the African Cup, but that's not contributing to the count. And after that, in March of 2024, we have World Cup qualifying. No, we don't. We have 2 friendlies in March of 2024. We also have a friendly in May of 2024, but we don't have good information on that. So we're going to put that one in grey. It doesn't contribute to the count. In the World Cup 2026 qualifying, Eritrea was in Tanzania's group, but they dropped out of the competition. So normally most teams had 2 qualification games for 2026 World Cup qualifying, but for Tanzania it was 1 qualifying game and 1 friendly. So Bulgaria is the team they played in lieu of their game with Eritrea. Moving on to the fall of 2024, we have all the African Cup qualifying games for this tournament. So 2 games in each of September, October, and November, and that completed qualification for this tournament. And because we're doing this media cast, you should know that they were successful there. We have a bit of a weird one here in January of 2025. They actually played 3 games. We have 2 on the visual. The first of those games they played against themselves. So it was Tanzania versus Tanzania, and it wasn't even their A team, not many of the top players playing in that. So definitely an experimental game for them there. The other 2 were also pretty experimental. I would even call them recruitment games because some of the names were completely unfamiliar. And yes, there we have it, January of 2025. I'm just doing up the graphics. I see I even have a spelling mistake there, recruitment. Okay, moving on to March of 2025. We have 2 more World Cup qualifying games, but I think I only have the one here. Oh yes, again it's just 1 for Tanzania. That's not because of Eritrea, that's what was confusing me. It's because the game against Congo was awarded to them, so just 1 game there in March of 2025. In June and July, they had 3 friendlies, but again, these were fairly experimental. And so it doesn't really inform us much about what their starting lineup was. Now we go to the fall of 2025, where they have World Cup qualifying games, but again, they're short 1 game because this is the 2nd match scheduled with Eritrea, and they did not play it. They actually did play a friendly, but we were well into our planning before we realized that friendly was could have been part of the count, but we didn't count it. What we're going to do instead is save that friendly for looking at in part two there. So that gives us our look at the games over the period for them. Let's take a look. Oh, no, I should actually say where the manager was. So after the 2023 African Cup year, they had a change in manager, and we'll talk about that right at the beginning of section two. But otherwise, actually from the period we are counting participation for, we have all of the games under the new manager there. And now we can go look at formations. We'll just summarize the formations here. So in 6 of the 19 games, make that 8 of the 19 games, so almost half, they have a 4-3-3 formation. And then in 6 of the 19 games, they have a 4-2-3-1 formation. They also use a 4-5-1 formation in 4 of the 19 games. So those are the 3 formations they use the most. And let me summarize what that means. So what that means is that they actually have a 2-man central defense all the time, 100% of games. So 2 central defenders and a right back and a left back. The midfield is a bit more complex, but I will just say that it's a 2-man midfield about 2/3 of the time and a 3-man midfield about 1/3 of the time there. But the last one we look at is the forward line, and this is very stable. They go with a single forward 95% of the time and a 2-man forward line in just 5% of the games. In the 4-3-3 formation, I'll just remind you that we view that as a single forward alongside a left and right attacking midfielder. I'll talk about that in section 2 when we get to that section. Okay, that's it. Our last order of business here is a look at their upcoming games. Well, that friendly I mentioned in October, we will be looking at that in part 2. That was a game against Iran, and it was played in the in the UAE, the United Arab Emirates there. And we're not that interested in the scores. We are going to be interested in the lineups to help us predict the final lineups for Tanzania in part 2. But just out of interest, Iran is a much stronger team than Tanzania, and they won 2-0. There. Then in November, in the middle of November, they played a friendly against Kuwait. That was in Kuwait, and looks like an exciting game there. It was a 4-3 loss, but 3 goals there, pretty good. They don't have any friendly scheduled for December, but we do expect some teams, or we do expect the teams to schedule some warm-up games. So we'll be able to talk about that in part 2. Nothing has been scheduled yet, though. Okay, that brings us to the end of section 1. We move on to our main business here in section 2 and talk about the candidates. So let's talk about that managerial situation that I alluded to. Outgoing manager is Adel Amrouche. I'll change his name to Gray. No, I'll change his name to Red. Oh, that's kind of bad luck in Korea to put someone's name in red. I lived in Korea for 15 years, so it makes me uncomfortable to put someone's name in red. I have the existing manager, Morocco Hamed. I have his name in light gray because he's never managed through a tournament, and that's what the colors mean. If you see players in light gray, it means they have not been through a tournament. Anyway, let's those are the candidates then. Hamed Morocco, the current manager, and Adel Amrouche, the previous manager. And let's go with a narrative before I introduce you to Hamed Morocco. Adel Amrouche had come into the position in March of 2023. And they had already played their first two games of African Cup 2023 qualifying, and he led them to a successful qualification, thanks largely to a tie in Algeria in their last game, which earned them second place, just a point ahead of Uganda. So Adel Amrouche led them through the cup as well. That took place in January of 2024, and they performed reasonably well, tying Zambia and Congo DR. However, they did finish last in the group. However, he was not fired after the tournament as a result of that performance, but he got in trouble with CAF, the organizing body for African football, because he said that Morocco, who they played in their first game and lost 3-0 to, and where they also had received a red card, he claimed that Morocco had too much influence with CAF. Well, the authorities didn't like that, and they gave him an 8-match ban and fined him at $10,000. And Tanzania's FA responded by getting rid of him, so he lost his job over that. I'm just going to see where he is at now. He is now the manager of Rwanda's national team since 2025. That's what he moved on to. Meanwhile, Hamed Morocco came in, and I'm a bit uncertain here because one of my sources says he came in as an interim manager. But he's been in charge ever since. So maybe somewhere along the line, they officially changed him to a permanent manager. Anyway, he has been manager for almost 2 years now, Hamed Morocco, and he led them through World Cup qualifying. That had already begun. They had played 2 games. The next set was played in June of 2024, and then it was put off for about a year while they did African Cup qualifying in the fall of 2024. So once again, Tanzania finished second in their group, this time a point ahead of Guinea. In 2025, World Cup qualifying was completed. That was fairly recent, in the fall of 2020. The qualification for the World Cup was completed. Tanzania finished third in their 16 group, 6-team group, behind Niger, but ahead of Zambia. So not a bad performance there, and we don't think that Hamed Morocco will be losing his job over that. But he may be losing his job over something else, which I'll talk about at the end here. Anyway, let's introduce Hamed Morocco then. He doesn't seem to have played professionally, and is actually not that experienced as a manager. He has managed a couple of teams in Tanzania, only since 2012 though, and not very big teams either, not any of their biggest clubs there. He was manager of Zanzibar national team. In fact, he still is, I believe, since 2014. That's a bit of a long story that I won't get into. But as I said, he came in as an interim manager, it seems, to the Tanzania squad in February, I think it was, of 2023, after the African Cup there, and remained. So even if he was an interim manager, he seems to be their permanent manager now. Okay, there we go, manager situation. Let's move on to goalkeepers, and I'll begin just by introducing the names of the candidates, and then I'll tell the story. And if you're watching the YouTube, again, keep an eye on the colors, because players like Yaqub Suleiman Ali, our definite candidate, is in light grey, which means he has not been through an international tournament. And I won't be pointing that out as we go, but you'll see in the biographies, you'll learn about that stuff. So, Yaqub Suleiman Ali, a definite candidate. At the likely level, we have Hussein Masalanga. And then at the possible level, 2 candidates, Zuberi Foba and Anthony Rem Mpemba. Possible but unlikely is the starter in the previous African Cup, Aishi Manula, and then seemingly off the squad, so the backup keepers in the last African Cup, Benno Kakolanya, Beno Kakalanya. I'm just waiting for my graphics to catch up. And Kwesi Kawawa. So you'll see that their names are in a black script there. We have a couple of other names to throw into the mix here at the seemingly off the squad level. Ali Salam and Matacha Nata, who has tournament experience. And we'll come back and look at those candidates in more detail after the summary here. So, in the 2023 African Cup, Aisha Manula was the starting keeper. That was in January of 2024. And as I said, Kawawa and Kakolanya were the backup keepers. All three of them were gone by the end of the year. Manula and Kawawa did each start one of the March 2024 games, but neither of them were called up after that. Manula, though, was later recalled, and we'll come to that when we get there. Anyway, in June of 2024, it was Ali Salam. He came in and started those 2 games, as well as the first 4 games of those African Cup qualifiers in the fall. He played the September and October games. Aisha Manula was recalled for the November games, but neither he or Ali Salim were called up after that. In March of 2025, newcomer Yaqub Suleiman Ali started all games from then on, from 2025 onwards. All goalies selected for the fall 2025 games had come in during the period here. So they're all basically new. It's a bit of an overhaul of the goalkeepers since the last cup. Let's take a look at them. Definite candidate Yaqub Suleiman Ali is plays for Simba in Tanzania since 2025, and he's been with the team since 2025 with 6 caps there. And by the way, he is 26 years old. I should have mentioned that. Brand new to the squad in March of 2025 and instantly became their starter. So there we have Yaqub Suleiman Ali as a definite candidate. The likely candidate, Hussein Masalanga, has no caps for the national team. He's 33 years old. He plays for Singida Black Stars in Tanzania. That's probably second to the 3 teams I introduced in Section 1, but a fairly big team there. And he got his first appearance on the bench in March of 2025. Didn't start any of the games, but was on the bench for all of those matches. So we think he will be a selection for the squad, even though, or a likely selection for the squad, even though he doesn't look like he'll be a starter. 2 possible candidates here. Zuberi Foba, no caps for the national team at 23 years old. He plays for Azam in Tanzania and got his first appearance on the bench actually in October of 2024. Didn't start any games, but was on the bench for 5, and that includes the last match. So that's why we have Zuberi Foba as a possible candidate. The other possible candidate, Anthony Pemba, also plays for Azam in Tanzania and is even younger than Foba. He's just 20 years old. He got his first appearance really recently on the bench there in September 2025. Didn't start any of the 3 games, but was on the bench for 2 and then not selected for the last match. So Anthony Pemba, a possible, little less possible it seems than Zuberi Foba. We go to the possible but unlikely candidate, Aisha Manula, who is a starter in the last cup. Indeed, he's been with Tanzania since 2015 and is a veteran with 68 caps, and he's only 30 years old. He plays for Azam in Tanzania as well, his second stint with them. all of his clubs have been in Tanzania. And not only was he the starter in the 2023 African Cup, but also in the 2019 African Cup as well. So a real veteran there. Over the recent period after the Cup there, he started 3 of their 15 games. Those were in March 2024 and November 2024. He was on the bench for 1, but not selected for 11 matches, including the last 6. So Aisha Manula, surprisingly, off the team, it seems. But there is a possibility he'll be recalled. I really wouldn't be surprised. So we have him as possible, but unlikely. Okay, we won't go into too much detail on the 2 backup players in the last cup. The first one is Beno Kakolanya, but he last appeared for the national team in March of 2024. And the same is true of Kwesi Kawawa, Swedish-born player there, and last appeared for the national team in March of 2024, right after being on the squad for the African Cup. So next we have Ali Salim, who we saw came in and played the 2 games in June of 2024, the first 4 games in the fall, and then was not selected for, oh no, he did actually, was on the bench for a couple of matches. Let me just say he got his first cap in June of 2024, started 5 of their 13 games. He was on the bench for 2, and then not selected for 6 matches, and that includes the last 3 matches in the fall of 2025. So perhaps a bit harsh putting him seemingly off the score, but honestly, he just seemed to come in and out. Oh no, we have a reason. He moved from Simba in Tanzania, a big club in Tanzania, to a much smaller club, and was immediately dropped from the squad. And in fact, the goalie who replaced him also got the starting position for the national team. So basically, Ali Salim left Simba and lost his starting spot on the national team, and Yaqub Suleiman Ali joined Simba and gained the starting spot. That's the story there. Okay, the last one to talk about, seemingly off the squad, is Matacha Manata. He was part of the squad for the 2019 African Cup there, but last appeared on the bench in November of 2024. So he was called up during this period, but not the last while. So they're leaving a lot of experience off the squad here. We'll have to see what happens in the last few games and what the final selections are. That's all a matter for part 2. We move on to defenders here in part 1 and look at the candidates that we have. So let's move to central defense. Again, all of the 100% of the time, it's a 2-man back line here, and we have a definite candidate in Ibrahim Hamad. We've moved a couple of players out. We've moved Lusajo Moikenda. He's coded as a central defender, but we moved him to right back because that's where he's been playing. And the next candidate is Bakary Mwamnyato, and he's a likely candidate. And then another likely candidate in Dixon Job. Oops. Dixon Job. Okay, down to 2 possible candidates. We have Lamek Lawi and Wilson Nangu. We also have Miano Vandenbos, but we've moved him to right back, and we'll talk about him there. No candidates at the possible but unlikely level, but 3 seemingly off the squad. The first one, Abdi Banda, and then Kennedy Juma, and finally Abdulmalak Zakaria. Okay, let's look at the narrative of the position with those names in mind. Yikes, my computer is going mad. There we go. Okay, in the cup, it was Ibrahim Hamad and Bakary Mwamnyato starting all three games of the cup. So good stability there. And in fact, that pairing continued until the fall of 2024. Hamad actually continues throughout the period, so he's kind of a staple in the central defence. But Mwamnyato fell off the team for a while, although he did return for the last game. Replacing Mwamnyato was Dixon Job, and he and Hamad were the pairing right up until the last game when Mwamnyato returned from a 7-game absence to reunite with Hamad. Anyway, those are the three main names, Hamad, Mwamnyato, and Job. Let's take a look at them, their biographies. So, Ibrahim Hamad has been with Tanzania just since 2023, but already has 28 games and 1 goal. He is 28 years old, so a bit late in joining the squad there. He plays for Young Africans in Tanzania, and as all of his clubs have been in Tanzania. He was a starter, as we saw in the 2023 African Cup, and over the recent period, he started 13 of their 15 games there, so a real staple in the squad, Ibrahim Hamad. Let's go to the first of the two likely candidates, Bakary Mwamnyato, and he's been with Tanzania since 2019 and has 47 caps for them and no goals. He's 30 years old, also plays for Young Africans in Tanzania, and as we saw, starting alongside Hamad in the African Cup. He started only 5 of their 15 games, though. He was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 2, but was absent for 7 games just before the final game there. So Bakary Mwamnyato, we nevertheless consider him likely. The other likely candidate is Dixon Job. He too plays for Young Africans in Tanzania. So we have defenders who are very familiar with each other playing at the club level. And like the other two, he has played all of his career in Tanzania. He was part of the African Cup in 2023, but he was on the bench. And over the period, he started 9 of their 15 games. So I actually should have put him ahead of Mwamnyato there. Started 9, subbed in for 1. And yes, not selected for 5. He wasn't selected for the last match, though, so we're not sure what the manager has in mind. There, let's look at some of the just more like bench players. The first possible candidate is Lamek Lawi. He's been with Tanzania since 2024 with 3 caps and 1 goal, and is 20 years old, so very young. He plays for Azam in Tanzania, played for Simba before that, so he's with the top clubs in Tanzania over the last couple of years. Lamek Lawi didn't start any of the games, but he was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 1, which makes a possible seem a bit generous for him here. Anyway, we did put him there. Perhaps those games were at the end of the period. Anyway, Lamek Lawi. The other one we have here is Wilson Nangu. He has no caps for the national team. He's 24 years old and plays for Simba in Tanzania. And he got his first appearance on the bench in June of 2025 and didn't start any of the remaining 4 games, but he was on the bench for 3 of them, although he wasn't selected for the last match. So Wilson Nangu, just a possible candidate. That leaves the defense very thin, relying on 3 players. Teams usually bring 5 or 6 to the cup. But we'll talk about that in part 2. Let's quickly look at some of the seemingly off-the-squad players. Abdi Banda was with Tanzania from 2014 to 2023 and plays in South Africa. He was on the squad for the 2023 African Cup, but on the bench there, and he last appeared in that African Cup. So Abdi Banda off the squad for a couple of years now. Next, we have Kennedy Juma. and he's been with Tanzania since 2017 with 11 caps, but last appeared in March of 2024. He just made the preliminary squad for the last cup, wasn't selected for the final squad. Finally, we have Abdul Malik Zakaria. He's been with Tanzania since 2019 with 2 caps and plays in Tanzania. He was on the bench for the 2023 African Cup and last appeared in September of 2024. Last appeared on the bench there for the national team, so he seems off the squad too. Okay, but I wouldn't be surprised to see one of those players or some new players coming in to kind of bulk up the bench there. Let's move on to left backs, and here we have a definite candidate in Mohamed Hussein. In the cup, he was called Shabalala, regularly called that, so I'll go with that as his name. We have another definite candidate too, Pascal Nsindo, there. And we have, beyond that, just one player seemingly off the squad, Nixon Kibabaj. So let's see what's been going on in this position over the period. In the cup, it was Shabalala, the starter, and he held on to the position throughout the whole period, although he was absent for 4 games. So his main replacement, I think the 3 of those games, was Pascal Nsindo. However, 3 of his starts were over the last 5 games, so it might constitute a challenge to the starting spot there. Yeah, that is it. So let's take a look at the candidates. Mohamed Hussein, or Shabala, has been with Tanzania since 2015 with 58 caps and 1 goal, and is 29 years old. He had been with Simba for 11 years before in 2025 moving to Young Africans there. He's played all his career in Tanzania, and part of the African Cup in 2019, just made an appearance in 1 game there, but was a starter in the 2023 African Cup. Shabalala started 11 of their 15 games over the period. He was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 2, so just 1 match that he was not a part of. Pascal Nsindo also is at the definite level. He's been with Tanzania since 2024 with 16 caps and no goals. He's just 22 years old, and he plays for Azam in Tanzania. He got his first cap in June of 2024. He only started 3 of the games, but he was subbed in for 5 and on the bench for 4. So he too is just 1 match that he wasn't selected for. Okay, and then finally we have Nixon Kibabaj, and he last appeared in September of 2024. I won't say more about him unless he's selected, and then in part 2, if he is selected, we'll go into more detail. All right, that's left backs. Let's look at the right back situation. And we have a definite candidate in Lusajo Makenda. I mentioned him in the central defender because that's central defender section, because that's how he is coded. But he's been playing over here on the right. So we moved him. The likely candidate, though, is coded as a right back, and that is Shomari Kapombe. And the possible candidate is also a central defender that we moved, Miano van der Bos. A possible candidate here. We have another possible candidate in Israel Mwenda, sometimes called Patrick Mwenda. He is at the possible level. And one more at the possible but unlikely level, we have Haji Noga. Haji Noga. We'll take a look at him, and let's look at the situation of the position. Actually, it was Haji Noga starting the first 2 games of the African Cup, and then in game 3, central defender Lusajo Mwikenda came in. Noga played the 2 March 2024 games, but was virtually off the team after that. He was only called up for one game, kind of in the middle of the period. So it was Lusajo Moikenda taking over the position from the second game in June, and he played the first 4 of the fall 2024 African Cup qualifiers. Those would be the September and October games. And then in November, Shomari Kapombe was recalled from an absence, and Kapombe basically held the position until the end. And Moikenda acted as a backup, replacing Kapombe when he was absent. In the last game, though, long-time absentee Israel Mwenda came in to start. We're going to see that last game was quite experimental, a bit of an odd thing to do for the last game of World Cup qualifying and one of their last games before the Cup. But there we have it, Israel Mwenda coming in at the end there. Okay, that's it for defense, and we move on to the midfield. Beginning with defensive midfielders. Actually, I'll begin just by describing the situation. So we saw in section 1 that it's a 4-3-3 formation in 42% of games and a 4-2-3-1 in 32% of games. So just one line of 3 midfielders some of the time, but then 2 lines, technically 2 defensive midfielders and 3 kind of attacking midfielders, but the positions do blur a little bit, as you'll see coming up. Anyway, we are dealing with 2 to 3 positions here, and we have no definite candidate over here. Actually, we have Novatus Miroshi. I have him coded as a left back, but I'm considering changing that because over the last several years he's been more of a defensive midfielder. Anyway, Novatus Miroshi, he was the one who got the red card against Morocco there in the last Cup. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm just introducing candidates. So let's look at the 2 possible candidates. We have Yusuf Kagoma and Khalid Habibu. And then seemingly off the squad, surprisingly to me, is Hamid Mao Makami, seemingly off the squad. Wow, he's a veteran. We'll come back to him. Also seemingly off the squad is Adolf Bittegeko. All right, let's not talk about the position. Instead, we're going to introduce the central midfielders kind of in one go here. And I realized I put the players in the wrong slots here. So I'm just fixing that up, but we'll look at central midfielders and then look at the position because the 2 kind of bleed into each other. Okay, so at the definite level, we do have a candidate here. It's Mudathir Yahya, but I also see him called Abbas on a couple of my sources. So I'll call him Mudathir Yahya Abbas. And then we do have a central midfielder, Charles Mwamba. But we're going to move him up to an attacking midfielder because he's been playing more of an attacking role over this period. So that leaves us just with a few seemingly off the squad candidates here. So we have Sospeter Bajana, and then Mo Sagaf, Ben Starkey, and Zamiru Yassin. All 4 of those seemingly off the squad. Most of them played in were selected. In fact, all of those were selected for the African Cup. So again, we have a bit of an overhaul going on here. Anyway, let's look at the position over the period. We have attacking Hamid Mao Kami is actually an attacking midfielder, or coded that way, but we move him here because this is where he was playing. He started all 3 games in the Cup. He was a central midfielder in the first game. That was a 4-3-3 formation, and a defensive midfielder in the second and third games, a 4-2-3-1 formation. So, so acting as a central / defensive midfielder here. He was joined by Novatus Miroshi there in the first game, but as we saw, he got a red card against Morocco, but he did return for the third game there. And we won't mention the 2 other players who played in single appearances there in the Cup, because we want to keep it simple here. So Hamid Mao and Miroshi played the main, or remained the main pairing in March of 2024, but Hamid Mao dropped off to a substitute role and then played his last game in October of 2024, while Miroshi was in and out over the period. Mudathir Yahya Abbas took on a more prominent role and was sometimes partnered with Miroshi. Attacking midfielder Faisal Saloum sometimes dropped into the central midfield when it was a 4-3-3 formation. Otherwise, really, it was a mishmash of players. Adolf Bitakego started 3 in the fall of 2024, but was not selected after that. And Yusuf Kagoma started twice towards the end. But here too, the last game was experimental with 2 new names in the starting position. Okay, let's take a look at the characters, and we'll begin with our defensive midfielders, the likely candidate, Miroshi, Novatus Miroshi. He's been with Tanzania since 2021. He has 30 caps and 3 goals, and is just 23 years old. And he actually has a pretty good resume. He's with Göztepe in Turkey since 2024. But most significantly, he was loaned to Shakhtar Donetsk in the Ukraine in 2023 and 2024, and also played for Maccabi Tel Aviv in Israel there. Actually was with their youth club. Miroshi was a starter, as we saw in the African Cup in 2023. He got a red card in game 1, but returned for game 3. And over the period started a little over half of their games, 8 of their 15 games. He subbed in for 1 and was injured for 2, but there were 4 matches that he was not selected for. So Novatus Miroshi, a likely candidate here. 2 possible candidates. Yusuf Kagoma has been with Tanzania since 2023 with 9 caps. He's 29 years old and plays for Simba in Tanzania. He wasn't part of the African Cup 2023 squad. He was on the preliminary squad there. But he had actually only appeared twice on the bench in 2023 when he returned in March of 2025 to start 2 of their remaining 5 games. And he was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for the other. So good recent participation there, Yusuf Kagoma, but we only have him at the possible level here. Next, we have Khalid Habibu. Brand new to Tanzania since 2025 with just 1 cap. He's 24 years old and plays for Singida Black Stars in Tanzania, and got his first appearance just recently on the bench in October of 2025. And he started he started the last of their remaining games there, and he had been on the bench for 4 matches. So I'm actually thinking he first appeared in October of 2024 there, because he was on the bench for 4 games and not selected for 5. So Khalid Habibu, more of a bench player there, but we'll see, because he did start the last game. Next, we have seemingly off the squad, Hamid Mao Makami. He's been with Tanzania since 2013 with 81 caps and 2 goals. He's 33 years old, and he's with Azam in Tanzania in his second stint since 2025. but was playing in for a couple of clubs in Egypt there, actually 4 or 5 different clubs, and pretty good ones too, Petrojet and MP, not their top clubs in Egypt, but pretty good clubs there. And he was a starter in the 2019 African Cup. He actually lost his starting position in that cup, but as we saw, played all 3 games in the recent African Cup in the January of 2024. However, as we saw in the narrative, he last appeared for the national team in October of 2024. I gotta say, I'd be a bit surprised if he was truly off the squad. But he is 33 years old, so getting up there in age. The other, I gave a bit more detail on him since he's a veteran, but the other one is Adolf Bitegeko, Bitegeko, sorry, Adolf Bitegeko. Been with Tanzania since 2023. Well, no, I'm not going to go into detail on him because he last appeared in November of 2024. So we'll give details on him if he is selected for the final squad there. Okay, let's move on to the central midfielders, and there we have the definite candidate, Mood of the Year Yaya Abbas. And sorry, my computer is delaying me a little bit here. Okay, so I'm not sure what to call him because it's pretty evenly split on my sources as to whether they call him Yaya or Abbas. Anyway, he has been with Tanzania since 2015 with 45 caps and 1 goal. He's 29 years old and plays for Young Africans in Tanzania. His whole career has been in Tanzania. He was a starter in the 2019 African Cup, and in the recent Cup, he did start game 1, so he was one of the players to just make 1 appearance there. He was subbed out at halftime of game 1 and lost his starting position. He appeared only as a substitute in game 2 after that. Over the period, Yaya or Abbas started 8 of their 15 games, subbed in for 3, but not selected for 4 matches, including the last match. So as we saw, he kind of came in 2025 mostly, but then not selected for that last experimental match. But we do consider him a definite candidate for the squad. Beyond that, though, we just have seemingly off-the-squad players, 4 of them here, all of them part of the African Cup squad in 2023, although none of them were starters. The first one is Sospeter Bajana, and last appeared for the team in the African Cup in 2023. We won't go into more detail there. Secondly, we have Mo Sagaf. He is with some small clubs in England, has played for several small clubs in England. Probably the biggest of them was Ipswich in 2018, but most of them much smaller than that. And he was born in Somalia but grew up in Tanzania and then moved to England. His last appearance, though, was on the bench in the African Cup in January 2024. Thirdly, we have Ben Starkey. He was born in England and he too played for small English clubs. And also on the roster or on the bench in the last African Cup, last appeared in March of 2024, Ben Starkey. And finally, we have Umzamiru Yasin. He was the other player with a single start in the Cup there. He started game 2, but has not been called up since that Cup. So, and he's a veteran actually since 2019 with 49 caps, Yasin. So again, wouldn't be surprised to see some of these players coming back in because they do chop and change a lot. Anyway, that's it for central midfield. We have No players coded as right and left midfielders, even though they do use a 4-3-3 formation quite a bit, but it's mostly the central defensive midfielders there who play the role, as well as Salam, the attacking midfielder, who we'll meet later, sometimes coming back into the, usually plays in the center of the midfield when he moves back into central midfield in the 4-3-3 formation. So we can go on upfield then to the attacking midfield and begin with left side. And this becomes a real mess up here. But we'll introduce the candidates here. And we have a likely candidate in Abdul Hamisi Suleiman. Not really a starter, but regularly called up. And then we have three possible candidates: Kibu Dennis, Idi Nado, and Edmund Godfrey John. And we'll see all of these players actually, or most of them, getting the odd start. And then finally, we have at the seemingly off the squad level, Edwin Baloa, coded as a left attacking midfielder, but I think he played on the right a bit more. It doesn't matter though, because he seems to be off the squad. Let's talk about the situation in this position. And this position could be a left forward in the 4-3-3 formation, a left attacking midfielder in the 4-2-3-1, or even a left winger in the 4-5-1 formation. Three different players filled the position in the cup, and honestly, that's really how I can describe the whole period. It seemed to be a different player every game. Some familiar but out of position names, such as right attacking midfielder Simon Msuvu and especially attacking midfielder Faisal Saloom, popped up a couple of times in the position, but often it was an unfamiliar name, maybe one of the names below, or one of the right attacking midfielders or forwards who we'll meet later, just popping up for one or two games and then really not holding the positions. So we can't really attach a player to the position strongly here. But let's look at the candidates we have. Abdul Hamisi Suleiman, our likely candidate, has been with Tanzania since 2021 with 26 caps and 4 goals. He's just 24 years old and has played his whole career in Tanzania. He's with Azam FC since 2022. He only started 2 of their 15 games, though. He was subbed in for 2 games, but not selected for 9 matches there. Those must be recent games if we have him as a likely candidate, but just likely to be named to the squad and not likely to be a starter. Kibu Dennis is with Tanzania since 2021 with 26 caps and no goals. He's 27 years old and plays for Simba in Tanzania since 2021. His whole career has been in Tanzania, and he was on the squad for the African Cup. He actually did start game 2, so he was one of the 3 players who started once in the position. He started 5 games over the period and in different positions, I think, not just on the left. Started 5, subbed in for 1, but was not selected for 7 matches, including the last 3. So Kibu Dennis, just a possible candidate here. The second one is Idi Nado. Idi Nado's been with Tanzania since 2019 with 22 caps and 1 goal. He's 30 years old, also plays for Azam in Tanzania since 2019 in his case. And he returned after a 3-year absence in November 2024 and started 2 of their remaining 8 games. Subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 2, but not selected for 2 others, including the last match. So that boiled down to a possible candidate for us there, Idi Nado. And the third one is Edmund Godfrey John. And he actually has no caps for the national team. He's 23 years old, playing for Young Africans in Tanzania, a recent move there. And he got his first appearance on the bench in March of 2024. Didn't start any games, but he was on the bench for 4. And not selected for 11 others, including the last match. But he was there on the bench for some of the fall games. So we have Edmund Godfrey John as a possible candidate. The seemingly off the squad candidate is Edwin Balua, and he last appeared for the team in September of 2024. So I think he got a couple of starts there at the beginning of 2024. But was not part of the squad for the previous African Cup. He was just on the preliminary squad there. Okay, so no kind of clear candidate over here. Let's see if the right side is any better in terms of stability. And here we have a big name for Tanzania in Simon Msuva. And he's only a likely candidate, though. We'll see why shortly. And we also have Tarin Alarkia as a possible candidate. Tarin Alarkia, one of the starters, started once in the cup there. And the other possible candidate, Often Chikola. Let's look at the position then. Again, we have 3 different players in the position in the cup. One of them was Msuva here, and another was Samata, who mostly plays as a forward, but we saw him on the right once in the cup. And no, not really that much better over on this side. Again, seemed to be a different player every time. But we can say it was a bit more stable than the left side because Simon Msuva and the forward Clement Mzizi, who we'll meet soon, each of those appeared 3 or 4 times. So at least some repeat customers there showing up. Okay, let's look at Simon Msuva. He actually played in all attacking positions except in the centre over the period, but ultimately only started 6 of their 15 games. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll introduce him because he's a real veteran here since 2012 with Tanzania at 99 caps and an impressive 24 goals. He's 32 years old right now. He plays in Iraq. I thought it was for Esteghlal, but it's Al Talaba. I thought he was in Iran. Maybe I'm mixing him up with someone else. Plays in Iraq since 2024 and actually has played all over the place. Saudi Arabia, Algeria, Kuwait, Morocco, and some good clubs there. Wydad Casablanca in Morocco and Kabylie in Algeria. They're fairly big clubs in those countries. So Msuva, probably the most experienced player on the team. He was a starter in the 2019 African Cup, all 3 games there. In the recent Cup, he subbed into game 1. I was surprised he didn't start, but he gained a starting position for the following 2 games. So I guess he came in as a fitness concern because he was not attached to a club when the tournament took place. Simon Msuva, and as I said, started only 6 of the 15 games over the period, subbed in for 1 and not selected for 8 matches, including the last one. But he's such a big name, I can't imagine them not bringing him. So that's a factor that has us putting him at the likely level here. The other one is Tarin Alarkia, and he's actually coded as a left attacking midfielder, but his only start here was on the right. And he's born in England, Alarkia, he is has been with Tanzania since 2024, but just 7 caps and no goals. He's 28 years old. That's why I said just there. A bit of a late joiner to the squad. And as I said, born in England and has been with small clubs in England, currently Rochdale in England, but clubs like Crawley Town or Weedstone there in England, and was part of the 2023 African Cup. He actually started game one, but then lost his starting position there. Yeah, he subbed out of game one 38 minutes in and was replaced by Msuva, so not a great start for him. And on the bench for the next two games. Over the period, Alarkia only started one of their 15 games, but he was subbed into the last game. So he's still in the picture. He was on the bench for one other and not selected for 12 of the matches. So kind of on the fringes, but some recent participation has us putting him at the possible level. The other possible candidate is Often Chikola, and he's been with Tanzania since 2025 with just one cap, although he's 27 years old. So a late joiner as well, plays for Young Africans in Tanzania since 2025, so a move up for him in terms of his clubs within Tanzania. He got his first cap here in October of 2025, their last game, and was subbed into that game. So again, that was a bit of an experimental squad there, so we're not really sure if Often Chikola is under serious consideration. Anyway, that's the right side candidates. Let's go to the middle of the attacking midfield, because they do use a 4-2-3-1 formation quite a I'd say quite a bit, but it's not their main formation. They use it in 32% of games, so about a third of the time. And here we have actually a few candidates, some of whom we've moved around. We have at the definite level Faisal Salam, or Fay Toto. I think he's more commonly known as. He's a definite candidate. And then we have the central midfielder I mentioned before, who we've moved up to this position, Charles Mbomwa, or Charles Mbomwa Kokola. I have seen him listed as Kokola on a couple of sites, although I think Mbomwa is more common. He's at the possible level, and so is Maurice Abraham at the possible level. And just to remind you, Himid Mao is actually coded as an attacking midfielder, but we moved him to the defensive or central midfield and may have to recode him. Well, if he ever shows up again, I hope he does. Faisal Salam, no, I'm not doing the biographies, I'm summarizing the position. This one is pretty simple. Faisal Salam is a fixture on the field anyway. When they do use this position of central attacking midfielder, he has been in it. But we have seen him playing as a central midfielder in a 4-3-3 formation, usually in the centre. And sometimes we've seen him as a left attacking midfielder as well. So Faisal Salam, a permanent fixture on the field, although maybe in different places. Fay Toto has been with Tanzania since 2018 with 57 caps and 4 goals. He's 27 years old and he plays for Azam in Tanzania. His whole career has been in Tanzania, and he was a starter in the 2019 African Cup, well, for 2 of the 3 games at least. And he, like Msavu, was just a sub in game 1 of the African Cup and then gained the starting position. So another big name they oddly did not start with. But Fay Toto, we'll call him a starter. And certainly over the recent period, he started 14 of their 15 games there, and just 1 match that he was absent for. He also scored 2 of their 5 goals in qualifying for this cup. Fay Toto, so a definite candidate there. The first of the possible candidates is Charles Mbomwa, and he's been with Tanzania since 2023 with 13 caps and 1 goal, and is 27 years old. I think he was called Coca-Cola in the cup, or at least that was on the back of his shirt. Uh, and he was born in Congo DR, actually, but was a starter in the 2023 African Cup. Just in game one, though, he lost his starting position and was just a sub in games 2 and 3. And Mboma only started 2 of their 15 games over this period, as well as subbing in for 3 and on the bench for 1. But he was not selected for 9 matches, Charles Mboma. The other possible candidate, Maurice Abraham, has been with Tanzania since 2023 with 12 caps. He's quite young, 22 years old, plays for Simba in Tanzania, but he did play for a team in Serbia, a couple of teams in Serbia, actually, as well as a youth club, but has recently returned in 2025 to Tanzania. He was part of the African Cup 2023 squad. He subbed into all 3 games there, but didn't start any of their games over this period, just subbed into 2, but that included the last match. So Maurice Abraham, kind of a perennial substitute, it seems, but a possible candidate here. Okay, that is the midfield, and we move on to the forward line. We have no candidates coded as secondary strikers, so we'll go right to forwards and introduce the candidates here. And actually, ahead of Samatta, who's probably the most familiar name, is Clement Mzizi. He's a likely candidate. And Mbwana Samatta, also just a likely candidate here. And he is an injury concern as well, which we will come to. Let us look at the possible names here. Kevin Pius John is the first one. And then we have Selemani Mwalimu. Selemani Mwalimu, also a possible candidate. Oh, wait, we have more. We have 3 more. We have Yahya Zaid Omari, and yeah, no, that's just a repeat. And we have Paul Peter Kasunda. So 4 possible candidates there. 2 seem 2 possible but unlikely. Kamis Saeed and Nasor Sadoun. And then a couple of seemingly off the squad players, Cyprian Kachweli and Shentembo Waziri. Both of those seemingly off the squad. I'm just waiting for my graphics to catch up here. So a lot of candidates there, and kind of symptomatic of the chopping and changing, really, that Tanzania does, that there's no definite candidate, but a lot of kind of possible or lower candidates. Let's talk about the position. It was Charles Mboma Kokola starting in the cup. He's coded as a central midfielder. We may have to reconsider that because he's played in attacking positions. He started once on the right during the period. Anyway, he started as the lone forward in the first game of the cup. Samatta actually had started game 1, but as a right attacking midfielder. But Samatta became the lone forward for games 2 and 3. It was basically 2 random players, and by random players, it means their names are not familiar to me. I kind of have to look them up to see who they were. But we're not really going to mention players who just made single or 1 or 2 appearances here, because it would just become a tangle of names. So I say 2 random players in March of 2024. It was the same player starting both games in June 2024. That was Shentembo Waziri, who we now see is seemingly off the squad. Shortly after the starts there. But unlike the right and left attacking midfielder, the situation was quite stable. In the fall of 2024, we have Clement Mzizi starting the first 4 games, and then Samatta starting the last 2 in November. However, it was more familiar names all the way to the fall of 2025. Zizi and Samata each just started one of the games, and both of those were in September. But the October game was experimental, and we once again see another unfamiliar name. So things very kind of mixed up at the front, even though it would seem Zizi and Samata are main candidates, but as you'll see, they don't start as much as all that. Let's meet them. It's time to do that. Zizi actually does start 10 of their 15 games over the period, but in different positions there. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Zizi has been with Tanzania since 2023 with 16 caps, and he's just 21 years old. Thus, that he's with a club called Young Africans is kind of appropriate there. He's been with that club since 2022 and was not selected for the squad in the 2023 African Cup, just on the preliminary squad there. But over the recent period has started 10 of their 15 games, subbed in for one and on the bench for one. I'm not selected for three others, including the last match, that experimental match. So, in previous positions on the left and right, I've been saying a bunch of players showed up. Well, Zizi was often one of them, a likely candidate here. Next, we have Mbwana Samata. Captain of the team, actually, and he's been with Tanzania since 2011 with 85 caps and 22 goals, and he's 33 years old. He plays in France for Le Havre, but has played some pretty big clubs there, Fenerbahce in Turkey and Aston Villa in England briefly. That was around 2020, and he has been scoring in qualifying campaigns every time, really. Is one of their main scorers, but they didn't qualify for anything until the 2019 African Cup. There he was captain and starter in all three games, and same true in the 2023 African Cup, captain and starter of all three games. However, over the recent period, Samata has only started 6 of their 15 games here. He was out with 2 separate injuries for 2 matches, including the last one, but there were 7 matches he was not selected or absent for there. So Mbwana Samata is actually out with a muscle injury. He was out with a muscle injury for the last October game there, but he did recover from that. But now he has a new injury, a dead leg, since late October, and has an unknown return date. So Mbwana Samata may be a doubt for this cup. We'll have to update that in part 2, and I'll come back to it in a summary at the end. The first of 4 possible candidates is Kevin Pius John. Been with Tanzania since 2019 with 9 caps and 1 goal. He's just 22 years old and has one of the best club affiliations currently with Aalborg in Denmark since 2024, and with Genk in Belgium before that. He was just on the preliminary squad for both of their African Cups in 2019 and 2023. Oh no, he wasn't even on the preliminary squad for the most recent version. But he returned after a year-long absence in March of 2024, but started just 1 game and was on the bench for 1. And not selected for the last 4 matches. So maybe we have him a bit too high up on the list here, Kelvin Pius John, but we do have him as a possible candidate. Next, we have Selemani Mwalimu, and he's been with Tanzania since 2024 with 7 caps and 1 goal. He's just 19 years old and also has a good club affiliation with Wydad Casablanca in Morocco, although he's currently on loan back to Simba. Or not back to Simba, but to Simba since 2025. He got his first appearance on the bench in October of 2024, and started 2 of their remaining 10 games, as well as subbing in for 3 and on the bench for 1. but was not selected for 4 matches, including the last. Well, that last experimental game kind of confusing the issue for us a little bit here. Next, we have Yaya Omari, or sometimes called Yaya Zaid. He's been with Tanzania since 2017 with 10 caps and no goals, and he's 27 years old, and he plays for Azam in Tanzania. It's actually his 3rd stint with them, but he has played for a club in Egypt as well. A couple of clubs in Egypt, including Ismaili, which is a reasonably big club. And he was part of the 2019 African Cup, just on the bench there, but not selected, not really a consideration for the 2023 African Cup, because he had not appeared since the 2019 African Cup. In fact, he returned after a 4.5-year absence in March of 2024 and started 1 match, the last one, as well as subbing in for 2 and on the bench for 2, but otherwise not selected for 10 of the 15 matches. So again, a bit confusing when he's brought in to start at the end like that. We're not really sure of his status with the team. So we just conclude with putting him at the possible level there. Okay, next we have Paul Peter Kasunda, and he is our last of the possible candidates. Brand new to the team since 2025 with 1 cap, although he is 26 years old and plays in Tanzania, and he started the last remaining game. So again, kind of confusing us a little bit as to whether he's really going to be part of the squad or not. Paul Peter Kasunda. We put him at the possible level. The first of the possible but unlikely candidates is Kamis Said, and we'll just say that he didn't start any games over the period, just subbed in for 1 match and not selected for the last 3. So Kamis Said, we'll see. Nasser Sadoun, also possible but unlikely. He didn't start any games, but he was subbed in for 2 and on the bench for 1, but not selected for the last 7 matches, Sadoun. So we'll get more information if they are selected, but let's go to the seemingly off the squad players. Cyprian Kachwali, actually playing right here in Canada. Well, not right here, because it's about 1,500 kilometers between where I am and Vancouver, but close enough. It's closer than Tanzania, at least. He's been with Vancouver Whitecaps B team mostly since 2023, and with Tanzania since 2024. He has 2 caps and is 20 years old, and actually was selected for the 2023 African Cup, but he wasn't even on the bench for any of the 3 games. Nevertheless, he appeared over the period, but last appeared in November of 2024. So Cyprian Kachwali, young enough to come back into the team, but seems to be off it for the time being. And finally, we have Shentembo Waziri, and he is, let me try to make this quick here, September 2024, we'll just say that was his last appearance. I think he got a couple of starts in there in June of 2024, but anyway, seemingly off the squad now, Shentembo Waziri. And that is it. That's a long list of forwards there, but we're ready to move into section 3, and welcome to new listeners to section 3 here, because we're using this part as a short version on part 1 of Tanzania's players. So in the full version, we did introduce the candidates and their likelihood of making the final squad, which we'll review here. And if you want more information, such as the reasons for our predictions or some career information on these players, that's what we did in the full version of the mediacast. We're not concerning ourselves with predicting starters at this point. That's what we'll do in part two. But what we are doing here is looking at the candidates and their likelihood of making the squad. So let's go up to the top of the list here and look at the manager. Outgoing manager Adel Amrouche left after the last African Cup in January 2024, and Hemed Morocco is now the manager and has been over the period. For goalkeepers, we have a definite candidate in Yaqub Suleiman Ali and a likely candidate in Hussein Masalanga, and then two possible candidates, Zuberi Foba and Anthony Rampemba. Now, if you're looking at the YouTube version of this, you'll see all of those names are in light grey, and all of the names of the possible but unlikely candidates and seemingly off the squad candidates, almost all of those are in black. Black means they've been through a tournament. Light grey means they haven't. And so what we have here is basically an overhaul of the keepers. I should mention Aisha Manula at the possible but unlikely level, because I would not be surprised if he came back in. But yeah, a real changing of the guard here. Anyway, let's move on to central defenders. And here we have a definite candidate in Ibrahim Hamad and two likely candidates, Bakari Momneto and Dixon Job, and then two possible candidates, Lamek Lawi and Wilson Nangu. Those are the candidates. They probably need a bit more bulk on the bench there. Anyway, we talked about that in part two, or in section two, so we won't repeat it here. Let's go to left backs instead, where we only have two definite candidates, Mohamed Hussein, or Shabalala as he's sometimes called, and Pascal Msindo. Those are the only two over here, because we're not mentioning possible but unlikely or seemingly off the squad players. For right backs, we actually have a couple of central defenders coming into the position. Lusajo Mwekenda is a definite candidate, and he's a centre back. Shomari Kapombe at the likely level is coded as a right back. And then our first candidate at the possible level, Miano van den Bos, a central defender. And the other one, Israel Mwenda, or sometimes called Patrick Mwenda, coded as a right back. Those are the candidates over there. And we move on up to the midfield with defensive midfielders. We can do defensive and central midfielders together because they overlap quite a bit. But coded as defensive midfielders is Novatus Miroshi, a likely candidate. And then a possible candidate in Yusuf Kagoma and Khalid Habibu. Those coded as central midfielders, we have a definite candidate in Mudathir Yaya Abbas, and that's it. We have four players seemingly off the squad, and again, we do seem to need a bit more population here, so wouldn't be surprised to see some of those players coming back in or some new players. Meanwhile, we move upfield to left attackers. We have no definite candidate here, but we have Abdul Hamisi Suleiman as a likely candidate, and then a possible candidate, Kibu Dennis, Idi Nado, and Edmund Godfrey John, all three of those possible candidates. On the right side, no candidates at the definite level, but Simon Msuva at the likely level, and then two possible candidates in Tarin Alarkia and Often Chikola. For central attackers, well, coded as we're going to recode him as a central attacker and attacking midfielder. Faisal Saloom, or Fay Toto, is a definite candidate, although he does play in various positions, sometimes in the central midfield, sometimes as a left attacker. But when they use the central attacker position in a 4-2-3-1 formation, it'll be him. Beyond him, we have two possible candidates, Charles Mbomwa and Maurice Abraham. And then we go to the forwards, where we have no definite candidate here, but Clement Mzizi, a likely candidate, and Mwana Samata, also likely, but under an injury concern, which we'll cover soon. And then we have four possible candidates: Kelvin Pius John, Selemani Mwalimu, Yahya Zaid Omari, and Paul Peter Kasunda. All four of those possible candidates. Okay, that is our review of the candidates. Let's move on to big names who are off the squad. And we begin with goalkeeper Aishi Manula. He was the starter in the last African Cup. But last appeared in, wasn't selected for the last 6 matches. A bit of a surprise to us there. But he's a veteran with 68 caps since 2015, and it's only 30 years old. So we really wouldn't be surprised if he was brought back in. We're most surprised that he actually is off the squad. The new goalkeeper's very inexperienced there. Next we have, we'll call him defensive midfielder Himid Mao, or Himid Mao Makami, and he last played in October of 2024, but also a veteran with 81 caps and 2 goals, 33 years old. Again, I'd be a bit surprised if he was left off the squad for this cup. Finally, we have Zamiru Yassin. He is a central midfielder, 49 caps since 2000. And like the two above him, part of the squad for the African Cup in 2023. In Yassin's case, though, that was his last appearance for the team. So maybe a bit more surprising if he comes back. Moving on to injuries, we only had one injury concern. Actually, just checked for an update on that. And I'll tell you about it. It's Mwana Samata, and I should have said he's sometimes called Ali Samata, and so a big name forward for them. He was out with a muscle injury for the last October international, but he did recover from that. Then he was out with a dead leg since late October with an unknown return date. But I just checked and found that he did play for his club on November 30th. We're doing this media cast on December 2nd here. So we can put Mbani Samata as recovered from injury there, and he no longer is tagged on the main source that I use for this. So good. So in that case, it means no injury concerns that we know of for Tanzania, and we can move on to closing thoughts. I do have some closing thoughts on Tanzania. Generally, the only chance that smaller teams get in competitions like this is when they have a very tight squad that's used to playing together. And that's why some countries like Equatorial Guinea and Cape Verde have done well. It's kind of an advantage they hold over star-studded teams where the managers feel obliged to meet the expectations of players who expect field time. Unfortunately, though, Tanzania have chopped and changed the lineup way more than even any big squad. And whatever the reason they do that for, it's been hard for us to associate a player with any given position because it's often a different player in that position. And so I'm worried that the Tanzania squad kind of lack familiarity in playing with each other. So maybe there's a method to things like putting out an experimental squad for their last World Cup qualifier, but it's a bit baffling to us and doesn't seem to contribute towards building a stable and cohesive squad there. Okay, no, I had that off my chest, perhaps because I was a bit frustrated in preparing this media cast and summarizing the positions, but there, I feel a whole lot better about things now. And we can move on to our last order of business, previewing part 2. So we're going to let you know when the squad lists come out who made the preliminary squad and the final squad, and we'll highlight any notable non-selections and any surprise inclusions and new players. We'll also give an update on injuries if there's more to talk about there. And finally, my favorite part of part 2 is predicting the starters. So we will have a couple of games to base those predictions on that are going to be played between the end of the October games and the beginning of the Cup. So that'll help us to predict the starters. Otherwise, that is it for part 1 here on Tanzania's players, and we hope you join us for part 2. We would like to thank Pixabay and Cold Fingers for the wonderful music used in this mediacast. The title of the piece is Eid Mubarak.